Welcome to Wise Guys. These guys know sports. Here live on the Worldwide Sports Network on this Monday, December the 4th, in the house with your boy Trey Larkins on the Wise Guys Sports Show. Everybody remember go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. Come on in and sit it well, folks. We got an action jam-packed show. It's my NFL Week 13 recap. I'm going to discuss some of the big-time matchups in the NFL from Week 13. We're going to talk about the Green Bay Packers 27-19 win over the Kansas City Chiefs last night on Sunday Night Football. Yeah, I know I got to talk about my Packers. Great win for the Packers. Packers have won 4 of the last 5 games, playing some great football. We have found love in Green Bay. I'm going to talk about that game here in a bit. Also, C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans beat Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos 22-17. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on in the show as well. And joining me on the show tonight is Tony Hollandsworth. Talk some college football. A lot of people in the Florida state area and in the state of Florida, they are upset today because the Florida State Seminoles did not make the college football playoff. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on in the show with my man Tony Hollandsworth. So be sure to tune in to that as well. The number to dial is 513-203-8655, 513-203-8655. That is the number to dial. But we begin tonight's show in the NFL, in the NFC, as we had an NFC rematch that took place in Philadelphia. The San Francisco 49ers beat the Philadelphia Eagles 42-19. For the 49ers, Brock Purdy went 19 of 30. He threw for 314 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. Deebo Samuel was balling, 4 receptions, 116 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. For the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, he went 26 of 45. He threw for 298 passing yards, 1 touchdown. And A.J. Brown had 8 receptions for 114 receiving yards. Here's the 49ers players after their dominant performance over the Eagles.
I didn't want to get distracted by I got to go back and show everybody what could have happened or what could have been. Got a new team. This is 2023, and that's where my mind was at.
It means a lot. Obviously, we wanted some payback. We tried not to think too much about last year, but we knew we could match up with them, and more than that. So I think we proved a good point.
I ain't gonna lie, I was in that zone like all week long. For us, like, they beat us in the NFC Championship, and at the end of the day, like, talking trash. I mean, this is part of the game. Hopefully nobody took it to heart because it's just all fun and games at the end of the day.
That was the 49ers players after their dominant 42-19 win over the Philadelphia Eagles. So my biggest takeaway from the 49ers dominant performance over the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday is this was a get-back game for the San Francisco 49ers, and this was an opportunity for the 49ers to prove to the Philadelphia Eagles and the rest of the world that last year in the NFC Championship game, had the 49ers not lost their starting quarterback in Brock Purdy or their backup quarterback in Josh Johnson, maybe, just maybe, the NFC Championship game would have been a different outcome if they had a quarterback to finish the actual game. And this was a dominant performance from the San Francisco 49ers. And for me, I wasn't necessarily surprised that the 49ers beat the Philadelphia Eagles. I was shocked at the way that the 49ers dominated the Philadelphia Eagles. In this game, the 49ers had six consecutive drives with the touchdown. 85-yard touchdown drive, 90-yard touchdown drive, 75-yard touchdown drive, 77-yard touchdown drive, another 75-yard touchdown drive, and a 48-yard touchdown drive. The 49ers, not only did they beat the Philadelphia Eagles, they beat down the Philadelphia Eagles. And honestly, as I was watching the game, I was thinking to myself, and this was the first time I thought this, because last year, after the Eagles beat the 49ers in the NFC Championship game, I know that the 49ers did lose their quarterbacks. And not only did they lose their quarterbacks in the NFC Championship game, the 49ers lost 4 quarterbacks throughout the season last year. They lost Trey Lance during the regular season. They lost Jimmy Garoppolo as well during the regular season. And then in the NFC Championship game, not only does Brock Purdy go down, but also the backup, Josh Johnson, went down. At one point, Christian McCaffrey had to take snaps as the quarterback. So there was a moment yesterday as I was watching the 49ers dominate the Eagles, I was thinking to myself, in a way, you can make a legitimate argument that the 49ers beating the Eagles the way that they beat them yesterday, it delegitimizes the Philadelphia Eagles NFC Championship. You can make that argument. You can make an argument that it kind of takes away from the legitimacy of it, because if the 49ers had their quarterback in Brock Purdy, they could have beaten the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship game. And I understand that injuries are a part of the game. And I said that after the NFC Championship. My mindset was injuries are a part of the game. You can't blame the Philadelphia Eagles for Brock Purdy getting injured. But what you can say is, and think about context and say, hey, if the 49ers had Brock Purdy, this game could have possibly had a different outcome. It could have had a different outcome. And the way that Deebo Samuel was dominating in this game, Deebo Samuel, for the game, 22 rushing yards, 116 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. Deebo Samuel, he obviously talks that talk, but he walks that walk as well. And he backs it up with his production on the football field. I saw multiple times yesterday where Deebo Samuel was literally manhandling Eagles defenders in their secondary. You know, usually when we see a blowout, we always talk about the team that won and say they dominated the opposing team in the trenches. That's usually what takes place. Not in this matchup yesterday. In this matchup yesterday, it was the 49ers receivers dominating the Eagles secondary. I mean, Deebo Samuel was a man amongst boys out there yesterday. The Philadelphia Eagles had zero answers for Deebo Samuel yesterday afternoon at Lincoln Financial Field. Deebo Samuel was the best player on the field, and it was not close. It was not close. But I look at this San Francisco 49ers football team and the way that they are playing right now, I got to say, the San Francisco 49ers are not only the best team right now in the NFC, they are the best team in pro football. And you remember, the 49ers, they struggled as they went into their bye week. Their bye week was in week 9. And week 6 through 8, they lost 3 straight games to the Browns, Vikings, and Bengals. But before that, we had all said, after the 49ers beat the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, they beat the Cowboys 42-10. They were 5-0. And I came on the show, and I said the 49ers are the best team in pro football. And then they lost 3 straight games. They were dealing with a bunch of injuries. Deebo Samuel was injured. Christian McCaffrey wasn't 100%. Trent Williams was also out. And I was like, man, they're struggling. I'm not so sure they're the best team in the NFC anymore. I'm not so sure they're the best team in the NFL. And over the last 4 weeks since their bye week, the San Francisco 49ers have proven that when they are at their best, they are the best team in the NFL. After their bye week in week 9, they dominated the Jaguars 34-3. They followed that up and they beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 27-14. And then in week 12 on Thanksgiving, they beat Geno Smith, Pete Carroll, and the Seattle Seahawks 31-13, and they completely dominated the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday. It was a San Francisco 49ers masterpiece that took place, and Brock Purdy was balling. Brock Purdy was balling yesterday. Brock Purdy, 19 of 27, 314 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. He had a great performance. And I've been critical of Brock Purdy, and I still don't believe Brock Purdy is an elite quarterback, but it is undeniable that Brock Purdy is in the NFL MVP conversation. You look at Brock Purdy right now for the season, 36 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 4,559 passing yards. He's completing 70% of his passes. But let's get a little deeper for his statistics right now. His passer rating is 116. That's ranked first in the NFL. His yards per pass attempt is 9.6. That's ranked first in the NFL. He's completing 70% of his passes. That's ranked first in the NFL. His touchdown percentage is 6.9. That's ranked first in the NFL. He has four 3 touchdown or more games, which is tied for second in the NFL. He has 53 20-yard completions. That's tied for second in the NFL. So I have to be honest and not be biased and give an honest opinion about Brock Purdy. I don't believe Brock Purdy is elite, but he's playing some very, very good football right now. And to me, the two best quarterbacks who are playing at the moment and playing some great football are Dak Prescott and Brock Purdy. Now, neither Dak Prescott or Brock Purdy are top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, but currently they're the two best quarterbacks in the NFL playing right now. They're the two best. And right now, Brock Purdy, he is the odds-on favorite to win NFL MVP. Dak Prescott second, Jalen Hurts is third, but he's playing some tremendous football. But, man, the 49ers were really motivated in this game. And then I'm looking at Deebo Samuel, right? This was in February at the Super Bowl. This was on the NFC Championship game loss. This is Deebo Samuel. He says, quote, I feel like if Brock was our quarterback and how our offense moves, I don't think it would have been close. He was talking about the NFC Championship game. And boy, did he back it up. He backed it up. He played sensational. And I also thought that when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, I got my questions about the Philadelphia Eagles. I really, really do. Like, defensively, this Philadelphia Eagles football team, they are not the same team this year compared to what they were last year. You look at the Eagles this year. This was before yesterday against the 49ers. This were their numbers. Opposing teams, they average 22 points per game against the Eagles defense. That's ranked 20th in the NFL. Opposing teams average 256 passing yards per game. That's ranked 29th in the NFL. Opposing teams before yesterday had 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. That's ranked 30th in the NFL. And opponents' third down conversion percentage is 46%. That's ranked 30th in the NFL. Defensively, this Philadelphia Eagles football team is not the same team in 2023 that they were in 2022. They are struggling defensively right now. And I look at their defense, personnel-wise, they have a solid defense. Up front, you got Brandon Graham. You still got Fletcher Cox. You got Jordan Davis as well. Okay? They just signed Shaquille Leonard. He's the former linebacker for the Indianapolis Colts. You still got Hassan Reddick. In the secondary, though, that's where they struggle. They struggle in the secondary. In the secondary, you got Kevin Byard. You got James Bradbury, who Deebo Samuel was cooking yesterday. Deebo was cooking James Bradbury yesterday. And you still got big play Darius Slay. But that secondary is getting cooked right now. They're not playing good football. They really, really not. And I thought offensively, the Eagles, them having to kick field goals on those first 2 possessions really changed the complexion of the football game. Because if you go up 14-0 against the 49ers, I'm not sure how Brock Purdy would have responded being down 14-0 in a hostile environment at Lincoln Financial Field. But the Eagles having to settle for 2 field goals and the 49ers thinking, wow, we're only down 6 at the end of the first quarter. We're only down 6. I thought the 49ers took that momentum, and in the final 3 quarters, the 49ers outscored the Eagles 42-13. 42-13 over the last 3 quarters of that game. It was a dominating performance by the San Francisco 49ers. And if these two teams meet in the NFC Championship game again, I think the 49ers deserve to be favored at this point. They deserve to be favored at this point. Over the last 4 weeks, since their bye week, they've been playing some of the best football in the NFL. They are the best team in the NFL right now, and they are the odds-on favorite in my eyes to win the Super Bowl. And I don't even think any team in the AFC can even beat the 49ers right now. I know the 49ers are going to play the Ravens, I believe, on Christmas, but I don't think the Chiefs can beat the 49ers. I damn sure don't believe the Dolphins can beat the 49ers. Ravens, I would probably favor the 49ers over the Ravens right now. We'll see what happens when they match up against each other. I believe it's like week 16 or week 17 on Christmas, but 49ers are the best team right now in the NFL, and it's not close. It's not close. Philadelphia needs to figure some things out quick, fast, and in a hurry, because if they don't get their acts together, the Philadelphia Eagles not only could lose out on being the number 1 seed, but they could also lose the division lead in the NFC East. They got the Cowboys next week in Dallas on Sunday Night Football. That's a big, big game for the Philadelphia Eagles. Big, big game. They could fall to 10-3, and the Cowboys could definitely win that matchup, and they'll be the number 1 team in the NFC East. So it's going to be interesting moving forward, but great performance all around by the San Francisco 49ers, and it was a big-time win for them boys, for sure. Everybody go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. I'll be right back. And welcome back to Wise Guys. These guys know sports. Here live on the Worldwide Sports Network. Everybody remember go follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. Remember the number of the dial is 513-203-8655. 513-203-8655. Any particular topic you want to discuss, we can talk about it on the show tonight. Let's transition and let's go to a matchup being played last night at Lambeau Field as the Green Bay Packers beat the Kansas City Chiefs 27-19. For the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, he went 21 of 33. He threw for 210 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Pacheco had 18 carries for 118 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. For the Packers, Jordan Love continues his hot streak. He's been balling. He went 25 of 36. He threw for 267 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. So, my biggest takeaway from the Packers' 27-19 win over the Kansas City Chiefs is the Green Bay Packers have found love in Green Bay. Jordan Love has been playing some great football over the last few weeks, and it's led to 3 straight wins for the Green Bay Packers over the Chargers, Lions, and Chiefs. You look at Jordan Love and what he's been able to do over the last 3 weeks. Jordan Love has 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He's completing 69% of his passes. His passer rating right now is 116.9, and the Packers are 3-0 in those games. Jordan Love is playing some great football, and I have to give my head coach, Matt LaFleur, a ton of credit because I said after around October, because in October, that's when the Packers were struggling. Jordan Love was struggling overall. He was just struggling. And the Packers in October, they lost to the Raiders in week 5. They lost to the Broncos in week 7. They lost to the Vikings in week 8. And it was a bad month for the Packers. It was a bad month for Jordan Love as well. And in late game moments, Jordan Love did not deliver. And the Packers lost games to the Raiders and the Broncos, games they could have possibly won if Jordan Love executed in those moments. But I didn't blame Jordan Love solely for the Packers' struggles in October. I also blamed Matt LaFleur because I felt like Matt LaFleur, he didn't allow Jordan Love to throw the football. He had a very, very conservative approach. And I said at the time, Matt, you have to allow Jordan Love to throw the football so we can know moving forward if he's our franchise quarterback for future seasons to come. And I thought that at the time in October, Matt LaFleur, he kind of was treating Jordan Love like a child that you treat when they first started riding their bike. You know, when you first put your kid on the bike and you got the training wheels on the bike and you're kind of nervous and scared. That's how Jordan Love was being treated by Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur did not trust Jordan Love to throw the football down the field, and I just thought he kind of like had Jordan Love in a seatbelt per se. And over the last 3 weeks, he's taken that seatbelt off and he's taken the training wheels off and allowing Jordan Love to throw the football down the field. And boy, has it paid off. It has paid off for Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. This offense is playing at an elite level. And I feel like last night's win over the Chiefs is the biggest win of the season for the Green Bay Packers so far. Before they beat the Chiefs, I thought their win over the Lions on Thanksgiving was the biggest win of the season. Until they beat Mahomes last night at Lambeau Field in primetime, that was the biggest win of the season so far for the Green Bay Packers. And I look at Jordan Love right now. He's playing some great football. You look at his numbers so far this year. 22 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 2,866 passing yards. He's completing 61% of his passes. He's playing some very, very good football. But it ain't just Jordan Love right now that's playing some great football. The entire Packers offense is growing right before our eyes. Like, this Packers receiving room, they are young and they are talented. The way the Packers draft and develop in that system, it's one of the best systems in the NFL that a receiver or offensive player in general would want to go and play for. The Packers, they draft receivers and they develop them in that system. They don't usually draft receivers in the first round. They usually draft receivers in the later rounds in the NFL draft, but they always pay off. You look at this Packers receiving room right now. You got Christian Watson. You got Romeo Doubs. You got Jalen Reed. You got Wicks as well. And at tight end, you got Tucker Kraft. You got Luke Musgrave once he returns back to the field. So the Packers have weapons. They are young, and they are all growing together. And I feel like Jordan Love is a better fit for this Packers football team than Aaron Rodgers was last year. Because Aaron Rodgers last year, he was kind of like the old man on the block. Like he like he had a bunch of these younger guys and young players in this Packers offense, and you had Aaron Rodgers, the old guy that was still leading this football team. And I feel like they connect better with Jordan Love than they did with Aaron Rodgers because they are growing with Jordan Love. So it's almost as if they respect Jordan Love's leadership more than Aaron Rodgers. You respect Aaron Rodgers because of what he's accomplished and him being a Hall of Fame quarterback, but Jordan Love can relate to Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs and Jalen Reed and Dontayvius Wicks. Aaron Rodgers couldn't relate to those young receivers. So I think the Packers are in a great place. I thought defensively they had a bend but not break approach. You saw the Chiefs move the football in between the 20s, but once they got into the red zone, the Packers played some great defense, and they held the Chiefs to field goals. The Chiefs had to kick 2 field goals in the red zone. So I thought defensively, Joe Barry did a tremendous job at being able to contain Patrick Mahomes once the Chiefs got into the red zone. Now, everyone's talking about that last possession for the Chiefs. The Packers did get away with a blatant pass interference that would have put the Chiefs in the red zone on their last possession. It was a blatant pass interference. And I'm a Packers fan. I love the Packers. I'm a diehard fan. But we got away with one. We got away with a blatant pass interference call. Now, I also believe, though, that the unnecessary roughness penalty on Owens was a terrible penalty. It was a terrible penalty. Mahomes had not gotten out of bounds yet. He was trying to get all the yards he could possibly get. And Owens just made a football play on Mahomes. I didn't like that penalty in that moment. I thought it was a bad time to call a penalty, and I don't even think it was a penalty. I thought they just made that call because it was Patrick Mahomes, and it seemed like the impact was more significant than it actually was, but it really wasn't that significant. And I thought it was a football play made by Owens, and it was a bad penalty. But on that last possession, that is a possession that the refs would want to forget about because there was some bad calls on both sides. Now, when I look at the Chiefs, right? Obviously, Patrick Mahomes this year, you look at his numbers statistically. Mahomes, 22 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, 3,127 passing yards. He's completing 68% of his passes. But the problem that Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid has right now is no one in that receiver room they have that they can depend on. Like, there's no one. Like, I'm looking at the Chiefs receivers last night. Rashee Rice, 8 receptions, 64 receiving yards. MVS, 2 receptions, 25 receiving yards. Sky Moore, 1 reception, 5 receiving yards. And the Chiefs this year, they have struggled at being able to move the football down the field because they don't have no reliable receiver to rely on in this offense. And that's the biggest problem right now with the Chiefs. And I thought to myself as I was watching this game, I was thinking, for the first time, the Chiefs miss Tyreek Hill. The Kansas City Chiefs miss Tyreek Hill in this offense. And it's obvious. It's obvious right now. And it makes what Patrick Mahomes did last year, leading them to the Super Bowl and actually winning the Super Bowl, it makes it that much more impressive. Because this Chiefs offense, from a receiver standpoint, they don't have a true number one receiver. They don't. It's Travis Kelce or bust for this Chiefs offense right now, and they are struggling. They are struggling. And right now, at 8-4, I'm not so sure that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be the number one seed in the AFC. So that means Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs will not host the AFC Championship game. And if they do make it to the AFC Championship game, they'll have to go on the road this time to get back to the Super Bowl. It's possible that the road to the Super Bowl will have to go through Baltimore or even Jacksonville in the AFC this year, depending on the results from the Bengals-Jags game tonight. But Chiefs are in some trouble. I thought last night defensively they didn't play very well. The Packers offense they were able to move the football. The Packers had 129 rushing yards. They had 382 total yards for the game. I thought last night was the Chiefs defense worst performance of the season. Worst performance of the season. And I believe the Packers, with their 27 points, that's the most points given up this year by this Chiefs defense. So they didn't really play very well. But about the Packers real quick, I think the Green Bay Packers are going to make the playoffs, folks. Seriously. This is the Packers' remaining schedule. Next week, they are in New York to play the Giants. That should be a win. Week 15, they are home against the Buccaneers. That's a toss-up, but I think the Packers will be favored in that matchup. Week 16, they are in Carolina against Bryce Young and the Panthers. The Panthers are the worst team in the NFL. That should be a win for the Packers. Week 17, this is on New Year's Eve, I believe. They are in Minnesota to play the Minnesota Vikings. That's a game that's a toss-up. It can go either way. Both teams are fighting for playoff position in the NFC. And then week 18, they are home against the Bears. That should be a win. So the Packers got 5 games left, and I believe that they could win out. They could win out and finish 11-6. But worst case scenario, they'll beat the Giants, Panthers, and Bears for sure. So that's 9-8. If they can beat the Bucs or the Vikings, the Packers will be a playoff team in the NFC. So watch out for the Packers as we close the season out. Everybody go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. I'll be right back.
find a sign, an unexpected invitation. I've got that sunshine on my mind. Sometimes I'm slow in my creation, trying to write the perfect line. Just got to wait it out and make it one more night. Tomorrow, I'll know when the nights are long and things are looking down. I remember that your light is all around. When it seems like darkness lasts a million hours, I remember that your light is all around. Oh, your light. I remember that your light is all around. Oh, your light. I remember that your light is all around. A wandering soul, no clear direction. A nighttime traveler through the stars. A shadow man, no destination. No path illuminates so far.
Hey, welcome back to Wise Guys. These guys know sports. Here live on the Worldwide Sports Network. Everybody remember go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. I want to welcome to the show Tony Hollandsworth. He is the host of the Inside the Hoosier Mind podcast, the college football analyst for Wise Guys Sports. Tony, how are you this evening?
Doing great, man. How are you? How'd you enjoy the games this past weekend? Were you kind of surprised?
I was surprised. a little bit, Tony. I definitely was surprised, man. There was some interesting games on championship weekend.
Oh yeah. Did you? I do got to ask real quick before we dive super deep into it. Do you agree with the college football playoff rankings?
I got mixed feelings, Tony. I got mixed feelings about it. I really, really do. And that's why I was ready to bring you on so we can kind of dive into this and I can make an opinion and make a judgment call on it. And that's kind of where we're going with it. I'm glad you brought that up. Let's get right to it. So obviously the college football committee, the playoff committee who selects the teams to make the college football playoff, they selected the Michigan Wolverines, the Washington Huskies. We got the Texans Longhorns and the Alabama Crimson Tide. And so, Tony, it's a lot of people in the state of Florida who are upset today with the decision to leave out the Florida State Seminoles. So what are your thoughts on the committee leaving out the Florida State Seminoles? And do you believe that they should have been in the college football playoff? And if so, who should they have replaced?
Yeah, I'm probably in the same boat as you. I was super torn when I saw it because you look at all the criteria that goes into how this CFP committee put everybody in. The biggest thing is they looked at the overall record, so the strength of your record, the strength of your schedule, which unfortunately for Florida State they were ranked 55th. They were even behind Georgia in the strength of their schedule.
Yeah.
And then the biggest and the third thing that honestly is what hurt Florida State was they look at if you have a potential coach or player that is absent or is not going to be available for game time that is going to potentially make or not make a significant impact towards the game. So that's the reason why Florida State unfortunately didn't end up getting in. I actually just saw something not too long, just earlier that Stephen A. Smith said you can blame TCU for not allowing Florida State in. Because you look at what happened last year with the national championship, they got.
That's where I was going next, Tony. That's where I was going next. Yeah,
Georgia.
Yeah.
I'll say this though, because you live in Ohio right now, because you're an Ohio guy, and I know you're surrounded by Ohio State fans. You remember what happened when Ohio State won the national championship back in 2015?
Yes,
they won it with a third string quarterback.
They did.
The fact they didn't even give Florida State a chance kind of bums me out a little bit. I did hear someone else bring up a really good point of there's only 4 spots. So even if all of your Power 5 conference champions are good like they were this year, somebody is unfortunately going to have to be left out. I have a personal theory. I think they looked at it as what is going to be the biggest draw, what's going to make them the most money. Alabama has been a massive brand for the last 10, 15 years as far as being dominant. They've dominated the minute that they get into the playoffs. They weren't going to put Texas, they weren't going to kick Texas out because Texas had a head-to-head matchup over Alabama and beat them. So if they did that, then they would say that the regular season essentially doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I am a little bit disheartened the fact that it also kind of shows that I don't think the CFP really respects the ACC and doesn't see them as one of those top conferences as much anymore as compared to what they see the SEC as.
Yeah, but I think the year when Ohio State won, Tony, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Ohio State blew out Wisconsin in the conference championship game. And this year, in the ACC championship game, Florida State struggled with Louisville. They only won 16-6. So do you believe, let's say Florida State blew out Louisville in the ACC championship game, do you believe that would have changed the committee and would have forced them to put Florida State into the college football playoff?
I think so, because if you look at overall Florida's schedule, they beat two big SEC teams. Now, albeit they beat Florida just last week in a pretty kind of limping way. They only beat them 24-15. But whenever you go down to the swamp in Florida, that's a hostile territory to have to play in. And of course, they dominated at the time number 5 LSU 45-24 to start out their season. And then they went through the ACC with no problem. So I think you're right. I think had they probably been a little bit more dominant to show that it is a complete team, that offensively they can still make it work even with a third string quarterback. Defensively, they could even get takeaways and score on defense. If they could have done that all collectively, they would have probably made the committee think a little bit harder about what their decision was going to be. Because I kind of see why they put Alabama in. Again, I'm probably with everybody else, don't necessarily agree with it. Not the biggest fan, but I get why they did it, unfortunately.
Yeah, for sure. And I was actually going, that's where I was going with it next. I heard Stephen A. bring up TCU last year, and we saw TCU get blown off the field last year by Georgia. Do you feel like the committee felt that would happen this year in the college football playoff? Like Florida State would have gotten blown out had they made the playoffs?
I don't think so, because they would have had to face Washington. And Washington is one of those teams. They've been really good. Washington has proven themselves. They beat Oregon. They ran through the Pac-12 with basically no issue. What would be interesting, though, is would Florida State offensively be able to kind of counter it? Because Florida State right now, without Jordan Travis at quarterback, or even honestly their backup, Tate Rodemaker, who didn't do great at Florida when they played, but didn't do terrible, but he just wasn't turning heads by no means. It would kind of remind me of what Iowa as a team has been this year. They have an elite defense that's one of the best in the country, but offensively they just can't move the ball. So I think they would have worried, because they would have had to more than likely go against Washington as the 3 seed, and then you would have had honestly a fantastic matchup with Texas versus Michigan at the 1-4 spot potentially, which I would have loved to see that matchup.
Now, I want to read you Mike Norvell. He's the Florida State head coach. This was his comments after Florida State was excluded from the playoff. I'm going to read it real quick, and I want your response, Tony. He said, quote, "I am disgusted and infuriated with the committee's decision today to have what was earned on the field be taken away because a small group of people decided they know better than the results of the games. What is the point of playing games? A team that overcame tremendous adversity and found a way to win doing whatever it took on the field was cheated today. It's a sad day for college football." What would be your response to that, Tony? That response to Florida State's head coach Mike Norvell's comments?
Oh, no. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly, because if you look at everything as a whole, Florida State did literally everything in their power that they could do as far as checking off every single box.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is go out there, make sure you win your games. If you lose a game, you lose control over whether or not you are going to be able to get into the playoffs or not, or you have to hope somebody else loses. So you lose all control over your situation. They went undefeated through their own conference, through outside of their conference. They beat everybody on their schedule. They did everything right that they were supposed to do. I mean, really, to him, what more can you do? You're in a Power 5 conference. You won the conference championship, albeit not in the, quote unquote sexiest way you could win it, but you won nonetheless. It's like, what really more can you do at that point? You put in a team that you put in the SEC champion that lost to the Big 12 champion, and the Big 12 champion lost to an Oklahoma team that's now only, I believe, in the top 20s. They're not even, as high as they were when they first beat Texas. So it is disappointing, and I don't blame him. It's, to me, I also kind of look at it, and a lot of people have probably said this. I do think there is a little bit of an SEC bias because of not only how they looked at Florida State potentially being another TCU situation of getting destroyed in the playoffs. I think they looked at historically, what has the SEC brought whenever they've gone into the playoffs? You have Georgia, the last, back-to-back national champions, absolutely ran the table. Yeah. Alabama's won multiple national titles in the CFP format. LSU won it not too long ago. So all of these SEC teams have had just dominance the last 10, 15 years. So to me, I think that also played a little bit of a factor. It's just, who does the CFP want in more that's going to, potentially draw more ratings, probably make bigger impact as far as football goes, a very talented Florida State team with essentially no quarterback, or a Alabama team that has been on an absolute hot roll since that loss to Texas.
Now, Tony, obviously Alabama beat Georgia in the SEC championship 27-24 over the weekend. Both teams finished 12-1, but Alabama beating Georgia. Do you believe that is what made a difference and kind of is what put Alabama in the college football playoff over Georgia? Like, do you believe the winner of the SEC championship would have been the fourth team in the college football playoff rankings? Whoever won it, like whoever had Georgia won, had they been in the college football playoff?
Oh, yeah. I think had Georgia won, Georgia would have probably stayed at number one overall because, at that point, you beat one of the hottest teams in the country. You won your conference. And it's also one of those, you look at it as they didn't really do anything wrong to go down. Michigan didn't really do anything right to, jump ahead, and kind of the same with Washington. So I think Georgia would have probably stayed number one. For Alabama on that side, this is where I do kind of see why the committee picked them. They're the number 8 team in the country. They're on a roll. And let's be realistic too. They dominated Georgia that entire game. They took Georgia all the way down to the absolute wire. Georgia just, they couldn't get a stop. They couldn't stop Milroe from being able to run the ball. Milroe was tearing them apart through the passing game. Yeah. So, for them too, you look at it, number 8 beats number 1. Nobody had beat number 1 in 29 games except for Alabama. It's kind of hard to deny that resume of, okay, well, and your only other loss is to the team that we're going to put in at number 3. And even though I hate the term quality loss, that's about as good of a loss as you can get as far as who you get beat by.
Yeah, for sure. That's the thing though, Tony. I hear you saying Alabama dominated Georgia for most of the game, but they only won by 3. It was 27-24. Georgia was in that game. They outscored the Bulldogs outscored the Crimson Tide 14-7 in the fourth quarter. It was a close game throughout. I agree with you that you could tell that Alabama, they were outplaying Georgia, but I thought the game was still pretty close for the most part.
Oh yeah, I think it was good, and I think that's a testament to just how talented and how deep that Georgia team is, as well as I think that's a testament to Kirby Smart's ability to coach. But on the same token, I would say that goes credit to Nick Saban too. Nick Saban's been doing this for 14, 15 years just with the University of Alabama, and it shows what he's able to do with his team. Because I don't know about you, the first 4 weeks when I saw Alabama play, they lost to Texas. They benched Milroe. It was like they couldn't figure out their quarterback. Yeah, I think they only dropped 17 points against USF of all teams. So it's like this Alabama team's done. They're dead in the water. There's no way that they're going to be able to do this. And lo and behold, Alabama proves me wrong again, unfortunately.
Now I know this is in hindsight, but the Pac-12 championship was over the weekend as well, Tony. Washington beat Oregon 34-31, but it was a very competitive football game. Had Oregon been able to pull off the upset and beat Washington, do you believe Oregon would have possibly made the college football playoff?
That is one where I don't think they would have. And I say that because that, I believe, would have opened the door for Florida State to probably have a for sure definitive lock on being in. Because at that point, okay, well, your Pac-12 champion isn't, undefeated, but our ACC champion is. And I do think it would be a little bit of a slight of, okay, well, the Pac-12 technically isn't going to exist anymore after this game is over anyway. So it's not like this really particularly matters. So and unfortunately for Oregon, I don't think it would have been good enough to even propel them into the playoffs. They would probably be sitting at the 5 spot instead of Florida State had they done that.
He's the host of the Inside the Hoosier Mind podcast. He is a college football analyst. Tony Hollandsworth is on the show tonight. Tony, let's talk about the actual teams that made the college football playoffs and the matchups. We got the Michigan Wolverines going up against the Alabama Crimson Tide, and we got the Washington Huskies and the Texas Longhorns. So with the Michigan-Alabama matchup, I was watching on Twitter, they were showing the reactions of the Michigan Wolverines once they realized that they have to play Alabama. So I know it's early. We just found out about these two teams facing off against one another. But what are your thoughts on the Wolverines Crimson Tide matchup?
I'm not going to lie. Because I'm not the biggest Michigan supporter, even though I'm here in Big Ten country, watched a lot of Michigan games, watched them all year. I don't necessarily have faith in Michigan. And I say that because the last few games that they played, especially the last 3, aside from Iowa, they only were able to score a max of 31 points. Everybody else, they kept it close. Maryland was a 1-score game. Ohio State was a 1-score game. And of course, they dominate an Iowa team that essentially has no offense, which also kind of surprised me that they were only able to drop 26. I'm worried about Michigan because we've seen this the last 2 years for sure. They faced a Georgia team that was pretty unstoppable on Georgia's route to the first national title. They got absolutely smoked.
Yeah.
We look at last year, they faced a TCU team that I don't necessarily think they took as seriously as they should have. And they ended up getting, smacked in the mouth. They got beat. With Alabama, they couldn't have got a more battle-tested, more prepared head coach with Nick Saban in any luck of the draw. I mean, if they go up against Texas, they maybe have a little bit more of a shot, but Texas is a really big, powerful bully team who beat Alabama. Not only beat Bama, but beat them by 10 in Tuscaloosa of all places. So to me, I don't trust Michigan. I don't trust that J.J. McCarthy is going to be able to get it done. He had a extremely bad down year, and I think with Alabama's defense, they're gonna stuff that run game and they're gonna force him to throw it. And when they do, I think J.J. McCarthy is going to get exposed, and I think this is going to result in a Michigan once again a first round exit.
Now we got the Texans Longhorns. Obviously, the Texas Longhorns, they won the Big 12 championship. They are 12-1. They are facing off against the 13-0 Washington Huskies. What are your early thoughts on this Texas-Washington matchup?
I think this is going to be a good one, although I do kind of have Texas doing the same thing. I have a pretty hearty Texas win. Nothing against Michael Penix Jr. and what the Washington Huskies have done. I think he's had a fantastic year. He's one of the 4 people in the race for the Heisman right now. He had 33 touchdowns to 9 picks. But Quinn Ewers in this Texas offense, man, they're big. They bullied Oklahoma State in their championship game. They can beat you with the run. They're super deep at the running back, even with running back Jonathan Brooks out. They can beat you with the run. Defensively, they will shut you down in an absolute heartbeat. And like I said, we saw that against Alabama. Alabama could not do anything that Alabama used to be able to do to people because Texas absolutely shut it down. And even according to ESPN, right now on December 4th, obviously we're a couple weeks away. Well, actually, we're about a month away from this happening because this takes place on January 1st of next year. They have the Texans, the Longhorns favored 68% over the Huskies right now.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, you're right. Because in the Big 12 championship, the Longhorns outrushed Oklahoma State 198-31. So they were able to run the football effectively, and they were able to also throw the football. They had 464 passing yards. So that offense is really, really rolling right now, Tony.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't believe Washington has faced a team like that. Don't get me wrong. Bo Nix and the Oregon Ducks are a very prolific offense. But
I was about to say, yeah. What you think about Bo Nix and them? Yeah.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I like Bo Nix. I thought he's done great the last 2 years with Oregon, but this Texas team is a whole new beast to have to deal with. And honestly, to me, what kind of a better way to finish the season than, Texas, the team that has always been this close. They have all the hype, all the potential, all the talent, but can never make it against the team that has basically ran college football for the last 15 years for potentially a national title run. And basically a part 2 matchup of who really deserved to win the first time. Did Texas really show that they're back and that they're the kings of college football, or is it still Alabama's crown to lose?
He's the host of the Inside the Hoosier Mind podcast, college football analyst Tony Hollandsworth. Tony, I'm going to get you out of here on this last question. Who do you believe is the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy?
Honestly, I'm a little bit biased here because I am a massive LSU Tigers fan. I gotta go with Jaden Daniels. Over 3,000 passing yards, over 1,000 yards rushing on the ground. I think just under, if not right at, 40 total touchdowns throughout the year. LSU to, I believe, 2 multi-double-digit win seasons. He's been absolutely fantastic for them the last 2 years. He's kept them pretty much close in just about every game that he's played in. To me, it's Jaden Daniels. Again, nothing against Bo Nix. I think Bo has had a really good season. I think Michael Penix has had a really good season. If Jaden doesn't get it, I would probably root for Michael Penix Jr. to get it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think Marvin Harrison Jr. was able to do enough this year with his quarterback play to be able to get it. If there was a CJ Stroud still there, we'd probably be having a different conversation because I think Marvin Harrison Jr.'s numbers would be up significantly. But right now, I think I'm gonna go with my biased favorite a little bit. I'm gonna go with the LSU Tiger.
Let everyone know where they can find you, Tony.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Inside the Hoosier Mind. I'm also on TikTok, and you can find me at X, formerly known as Twitter. Took me a second there because I'm still having to get used to calling it X, man.
Me too, man. I still struggle, man. I still call it Twitter from time to time.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
You can find me there at IN Hoosier Mind.
Yes, he is the host of the Inside the Hoosier Mind podcast, college football analyst Tony Hollandsworth. Tony, thank you for joining me tonight. I'll definitely bring you on before the 2 matchups in the college football playoff. And we got plenty more to talk about. So I appreciate you joining me tonight.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on, man. Congrats to your Packers beating the Chiefs, by the way.
Yes, sir.
Pretty surprised by that. And I was happy the Philadelphia Eagles took an L yesterday, and my Cowboys still have a shot to win the NFC East. So it was a good day yesterday.
Yeah, it was a good day. Yeah, it definitely was a good day. I appreciate you joining me tonight, Tony, for sure.
All right, man. Have a good night.
You too.
Bye.
That was Tony Hollandsworth of the Inside the Hoosier Mind podcast and the college football analyst. Definitely knows his college football. I'm Trey Larkins. I'll be right back.
Lights are flashing in your mind. A spark from light years away, very rare to find. A flash of diamond in the sky. Your light is all around. When it seems like darkness lasts a million hours, I remember that your light is all around. When the day is dark and the sky is full of clouds, I remember that your light is all around. When things are tough and there's no end in sight, I remember that I've always got your light.
Hey, welcome back to Wise Guys. These guys know sports here live on the Worldwide Sports Network. Everybody remember going to follow Wise Guys on Twitter at wiseguys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys at Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. Great conversation I had with Tony. I'll be back on Friday previewing Week 14 in the NFL. It's a big-time matchup tonight with playoff implications. Jacksonville Jaguars are trying to lock down that number 1 seed in the AFC. Chiefs losing yesterday really, really helps the Jaguars because the Jaguars win tonight. They will be 10-3, I believe, and they'll be in the driver's seat to be the number 1 seed in the AFC and have the road to the Super Bowl have to go through Jacksonville. So it's a big time game tonight for Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars, who already lead the AFC South. So big time matchup tonight on ESPN. Tune in for that for sure. The number to dial, 513-203-8655, 513-203-8655. I'll be back on Friday previewing Week 14 in the NFL. So be sure to tune in. I'm Trey Larkins, signing off the Worldwide Sports Network. Everybody have a great week.